It's okay. All right. Well, welcome anyone who's watching. Just want to make sure I'm set up. I was trying to go live on Instagram, but they don't seem to be cooperating. It keeps saying something wrong with my broadcast. Like, such as. Like, not really doing anything. Let me try. Hold on. Do, do. Okay, it works that time. Weird. Instagram is interesting. So I don't know why that was so hard. Camera together. Oh, jeez. I cannot remember this time I have this many cameras in my face. Okay, great. So, welcome. All right, cool. All right, looking good, looking good. I think we got it. So, welcome to frequently answered questions. So, if you're seeing this for the first time, you don't know what this is, literally as somebody who works in the publishing industry, especially with indie authors and very often new indie authors, I run into a lot of the same questions, right? Now, sometimes I'll, get stumped by something, not so much stumped, like I don't know the answer, but I will get surprised. That's the word I'm looking for. By a question that someone asked that I just never would have thought was something people didn't know. And like I talked about last time, it's like how rankings work or what the word each means, things like that, that I'm just like, oh, okay, I didn't know that was a thing. So um, I just wanted to come on here and, kind of make a habit of answering some of those. Sometimes they're questions that other people have too. Other times they're not, but even hearing that question or hearing my answer to it might trigger, oh, you know what? Actually, I would like to ask about X, Y, and Z. And so, depending on where you're watching, you may be able to leave a comment and ask a question. But if not, again, you can always send them to me, and they, if you specifically want them to be answered on a segment like this, totally fine. Just let me know. And then I will not only answer you directly, but then, I'll share the answer with everybody actually on the broadcast so that, again, we could just kind of share the knowledge or experience or whatever it is that that question kind of needs in order to be answered appropriately. So let's go ahead and jump in. The first one I had was, aren't real books at least X words long? Now, of course, it's not always worded exactly like this. Sometimes I get people who are more concerned about the length of the book and like how thick it's going to be once it's produced than they are about the quality of the piece. And this is interesting because me personally, I don't know of anyone who only buys books if they're thicker than a certain amount, right? Well, it's not 3 inches thick, so I'm just not going to buy it, right? Like, I don't know that I've seen it, but I mean, anything's possible. There could be people out there like that. I am not one. So when I am looking for a book to read, I am looking for the either education value, there's something in it that I want to learn, or I'm looking for the entertainment value. There's just some experience that I want to have while reading it. I want to be scared. I want to laugh, whatever, right? So again, generally that's been the situation. Like that's how most people purchase their books, like why they pick up a certain book. Maybe off of like a recommendation from a friend or something like that, or part of their book club, something like that. But it just has nothing to do with how long the book is. And I don't know why it would, like I guess the only thing I can think of is, hey, I really love sci-fi with female protagonists or something like that, right? And I'm going on a very long trip where I won't have access to electronics, so I can't do audiobooks, I can't do ebooks, and I really want to pack as light as humanly possible. Okay, like if all of that is going on, then I could see somebody being like, I really like these two books. One's 50,000 words, one's 300,000 words. I'm going to go with the 300,000 word one. So I only have to pack one book and it's probably going to last me the whole trip, right? But do you see how like the mental gymnastics I have to go through to make that a major part of my buying decision, right? I would have to have just a lot of contextual stuff pressuring me to do that. But just normal, everyday purchases of books, like I haven't seen that be a major factor for most people. So I definitely would say don't worry about it. Like it's, because the thing about it is you may have a story on your hands that say 80,000 words, right? That's just where it is. That's what it takes to tell it fully and in a compelling way that we're just going to be satisfied with. Okay. The idea that you would spend the extra time, energy, and money, because again, if you write these extra words, it is going to take longer to write the book. It's going to take longer to revise the book, professional editing, like all that stuff is going to take longer and it's going to cost you more. And if, let's say, you think that a book has to be at least 150,000 words or it's not, quote unquote, a real book, well, then you have to pay for all of those extra tens of thousands of words. And again, that would be fine if that's what it took to tell the story or impart the information, if it's like a self-help sort of situation. But if you don't need those extra tens of thousands of words is where I get concerned. It's like, well, no, it's still a book at 80,000 words. It's a book at 50,000 words. It's a book at 20,000 words. If it is a bound set of pages, that's the dictionary definition of a book, right? So suffice it to say, think about that, right? When we're in the writing process, when you're, kind of going through these other steps that it takes to get the book out on the market. If you're one of these people that just gets really, really hung up on the length of the book, please make sure you're not like shooting yourself in the foot and for no reason, right? Because if you add those extra words, but they don't actually add any value to the piece, it's not more entertaining or it's not more educational because you added those words, I have to wonder why you added them. Like, what was the point? And what's interesting is that readers can often tell. They're, oh my God, that thing could have been a good 50,000 words shorter than it was, right? Like I've seen reviews like that where people are like, it just went on and on, and I just don't know why they didn't cut it, And again, that could be the reason why, because they're one of these newer writers who feels like a book has to be of a certain length before it's, again, a real book, whatever that means, right? So my answer to this is no, right? People have published books of poetry that are a few dozen words long. People have published fantasy novels that are hundreds of thousands of words long. Okay, that's fine. Either way, it's just, again, I'm coming to that piece for the value that I get out of being either educated or entertained, sometimes both. As long as I get what I came for, I'm a satisfied customer. That's it. The length is just not, it's not a major consideration, right? So that would be the way I would recommend that you think about it. So that's that question. Now, the next one is, what if somebody already used here's another one of them, what does that even mean? Title. So generally a title, is just a series of words, right? Or a word that helps label the book, right? So when people talk about it, they kind of have some idea, especially if you have a larger catalog, right? You can't just say Tanisha's book because she's got 37,000 books out, but which one of those? So the idea that someone took your title is interesting. It's one that I've seen pretty heavily among new authors, right? So people who've never published before. And like I said, it's fascinating. But the idea is that it seems like they think in their head that they have this string of words that they put together that no other person on planet Earth in the history of publishing has ever put together. And therefore, they can't tell anybody the title. Like I've had people do that to me where it's like, I'm working on a project, I don't know what the title is because they're so afraid to tell me the title that they just never disclose it. And it's wild. I'm just like, okay, I guess. Have fun with that. But unless and that's why I'm trying to even think of a situation, it would have to be something along the lines of there's like a word, like a term that you made up in the title And then still, it would be more about that term being protected, right? You've got like this trademark or something like that for that particular term. So yes, then maybe other people can't use that particular term without, some kind of licensing agreement with you. Okay, fair enough. But there's very low likelihood that has happened, especially if you're writing fiction, right? Like even with self-help, because some people can be writing self-help related to something that they do at their company or something. And so if their company name is in it, or again, some kind of concept or strategy or product that they made up and they've trademarked, and they put that in the title, okay. But again, because it was unique enough for you to protect it like that, there's a very low likelihood, without directly trying to steal from you, right? There's a very low likelihood that just some random other person on the planet would have already used that title, right? That just wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. Now, again, there are pirates out there. I get that. But as far as someone else just innocently having come up with the same or a similar title, that is extremely likely. Like, extremely. Like, there just aren't that many words in the English language, right? So, you may have called your book A Stranger in the Woods, and somebody else may have called their book The Stranger in the Woods or something like that. Okay, that doesn't mean you can't publish your book like that. Again, it has nothing, because again, for yours and theirs are a perfect example of how these very similar titles can come about. But then on top of that, again, there are going to be dozens, if not hundreds, of other books with either those exact words in that exact order or some, variation of that. So fine. It's kind of like a story, like the general idea, right? So two people meet and they go through some struggles to fall in love. I've said this before. That is all romance books, right? Like just every single one for this multi-billion-dollar industry, right? So a romance writer would not stop writing romance just because other people have written a story like theirs, right? Like we know that, right? And again, that's kind of why the industry works the way it does, is because romance readers tend to be the type of readers who will read the same thing over and over and over again, right? Of course, little details are changing, right? But it's the same premise over and over and over again. So one romance reader may spend hundreds or thousands of dollars on books every year just in that genre. And so that's where, like I said, all this revenue is generated from, right? And again, even if you look just in romance, you'll notice a lot of the titles are very similar. Nobody cares. They just want to read the romance story, right? So again, don't worry about that. That's just not a concern. If somebody out there has already used the title that you were planning on using, again, as long as we're not getting into any infringement type of things with like trademark stuff, you're fine. Like the string of words doesn't belong to anybody, quote unquote. Like I said, 9 times out of 10, it would be very rare. But it would probably be noticeable. It'd probably be easy to understand that, you know what, that's probably a word I shouldn't put in my title or something like that. So I don't think it's anything really major to worry about in general, but like, even if you were, like, just change the title. But I'm just trying to make sure you understand that most likely somebody else, like, is going to have a title like that. So this is probably going to keep happening to you if you search for every single book title, trying to find something that nobody else has used yet. And again, it's really not necessary. Like, there's no big benefit here. I can kind of get the idea of, I'm trying to be unique, I'm trying to stand out. If people search for this title, I want only my name to pop up. I get that. But again, with books, it's just really difficult to do. And it's not going to last forever unless you really do, hit it big and it becomes like this massive kind of classic thing. You're A Stranger in the Woods mystery novel or whatever, published in 2025, may be popular enough to pop up quite a bit once it's first released. And let's say maybe 6 or 7 months into the year, that'll kind of die down, either because it's not selling as much, it's not getting as much buzz, or because, again, other books are coming out with a similar title. And so it just starts to kind of get inundated and saturated, if you will. And so that's just kind of something that can naturally happen. That's just part of the process. And that's why I'm always encouraging people. You'll hear most people encourage new authors. It's like always be working on the next book and the next book and the next book. Trying to kind of put all your eggs in the basket of one book is very risky. Like as far as trying to make money and trying to make a name for yourself. Because in most markets, like you can only do so much with one book, right? There's just a limit to it. The way I've explained it to people before is it's kind of like taking up space in like a crowded area, right? The person that takes up the most space is going to be the most noticeable, right? And in the book world, that generally looks like having more books on the market. If you have 2 books on the market for sale, that's cool, but that's a very small amount when compared to all these other people around you who have 10 and 20 and 50 books on the market. They're taking up way more space than you are. So it's much easier to run across one of their books versus one of your books. You're going to have to really push hard to get those 2 books noticed and, sold, right, on a consistent basis to readers. Whereas, like I said, if you have 50 books out, that becomes a much easier job. So what would behoove you in that case is generally to just keep writing so that you can add to the size of your catalog, as opposed to trying to kind of beat a dead horse with trying to push these 2 books over and over again. So that's kind of how that works. So in a nutshell, if somebody already used your title, that's fine. You can still use the title. It's fine. Or if you're that concerned about it, again, change the title. It's not a big deal. Like this is just nothing to let derail your progress as far as putting the book together and publishing it. So there's that. And then the last one. Is a 6-figure ranking bad? So it's just the idea that a lot of, especially at first launch and everything, books will be ranked, 347,000th or something like that. And so my answer to that is no. Okay. Like it's not bad. It's actually pretty good. What a lot of people don't realize is that on Amazon alone, right? So we're not talking about any of the other places where you can buy books, right? On Amazon alone, just that one site, there are about, last time I looked, 17 million titles. Okay. So you're in the 6 figures, right? Out of an 8-figure field. So you could be number 17 millionth, right? But you're number 323,000th or something like that. So no, it's actually fantastic. Like that's wonderful, right? Because there's a certain point at which books are ranked, but they aren't selling, right? They're ranked because what they've sold in the past or something like that, but they aren't like actively selling books where people are buying multiple copies, every day. So if you are in the 6 figures anywhere, or even the 7 figures, you're fine, right? I wouldn't say you're, it's gangbusters, but you're doing all right, When you get into the 5 figures, so if you're like 30,000th or 89,000th or something like that, that is super good. Like I would call that like a B-, like if you want to like put a grade on it, like it's pretty good. When you get into the 4 figures, then you're really getting in there, and it's like you jumped up to like maybe an A-. It's like, okay, you're good, because it's really hard to be in the 4 figures in any category and not and just not be selling any books, right? I'm not saying it's impossible. There are certain, like you can drill down like niche enough to where it's like there's only 10 books in this category type situation. So you can be in the top 10, but maybe you still aren't selling that much. Maybe you sold, 2 books yesterday and you're only number 1 because the other 9 books didn't sell any or something like that, right? So that can happen, don't get me wrong. But I mean, that's still something. You're still selling better than those 9 people. So that's progress versus being number 10, on that list and not selling anything, right? So triple digits, okay, like is a solid A. Double digits is an A, like a high A plus. And then if you can get in single digits, especially in the overall store or broad categories like romance, I mean, you're killing it. That's like A plus plus. That's, unicorny type of stuff, especially for indie authors. So that's fantastic. But do you see what I'm saying? Where it's like the field is so big, 17 million titles, right? That even being in a six-figure ranking is pretty good. Like you're doing well. Because remember, rankings are based on sales. Okay. Amazon wants to push books that are going to make them money, right? So like you get to the top by selling more books. That's it. A lot of people, especially newer authors, they put a lot of emphasis on getting reviews. And again, there's nothing intrinsically wrong with that, right? You want to get reviews, that's fantastic. However, that's not the only thing. And in a lot of situations, depending on what kind of goals and stuff you have, it's not the most important thing, right? So when it comes to rankings, generally the most important thing is, are you selling, right? Have you sold any books within the past 24 hours? How many, right? And so if you haven't, then your ranking is going to go down. If you have, then your ranking is going to go up, or at least stay where it's at. So getting these, like, handing the book out and all that stuff to get these like free reviews and stuff like that, nothing wrong with that. Well, check Amazon's terms. That changes from time to time, but generally speaking, like ethically, like as far as just getting reviews, if you want more reviews, that's great, and that can serve as like social proof. Hey, people read this and they enjoyed it. But I've seen authors get frustrated that they're like, oh, well, I got like 100 reviews, and yet I'm still number 25 in the store, and this other book that only has like 10 reviews is number 1, and I'm like, well, again, the difference being that those 10 reviews may have come from 100 people actually purchasing the book and reviewing it, whereas you got, whatever, 25 of your friends or writer critique group members or whatever to take free copies of the book. So there's no record on Amazon that it sold anything, and then review it, which is great. And that's nice of them to be supportive and everything. But at the end of the day, they didn't buy the book. So it could look like you sold 0 copies, even though you have 25 reviews. Whereas this person over here sold 100 copies, made Amazon and themselves that money, and then just 10 of those people happened to review the book, right? So that's what I mean when I say, don't be careful about thinking that getting those free reviews and stuff is just going to launch you up the rankings necessarily, because even though it can help and it can help get you organic sales, when people see that other people have read it and liked it, it's just not the end all be all. And other books can outrank you because they're actually making money for that company, whatever platform you're selling on, versus, you gave out a bunch of books and a bunch of people left reviews for free. Like, that doesn't really do anything as far as the bottom line for the bookstore or Amazon or, like I said, wherever you're selling it. So that's why your ranking probably won't change. Okay, so those were the 3 that I had. If we don't have any questions in the comments, which I don't think we do, then I'm going to go ahead and shut it down. Instagram people, Facebook people, I see all y'all waving. Thank you. I'm going to wave back. All right, going once. Going twice. Because I know sometimes there can be lag, so I do try to give y'all a chance. But all right, well then I'm out of here. I will see y'all, I guess, in a couple of weeks. Wouldn't be next week because that's Christmas, right? Yeah. Okay, so I'll see y'all in a couple of weeks. Again, same issue, same topics. I'll bring you some more questions. If you have any of your own, feel free to bring them. But as with tonight, if you just want to sit back and listen to some answers that I've come up with, feel free. You're more than welcome. So I will see y'all next time, and thank you for watching. Do be sure to let other writers know about this so that they can follow along. All right, I'm out of here.